Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something that maybe doesn't sound all that exciting at
Mhm.
first, but I promise you it's super important.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the Algorithmic Impact Assessment.
The AIA.
Yep, AIA, exactly. It's this tool we use right here in the Canadian government, and it helps make sure we're using tech responsibly and ethically, making sure things are fair for everyone.
And the really interesting thing is that this doesn't just apply to, the really complex AI stuff.
Right.
We're talking about any automated system that could have an impact on people's lives, even in small ways.
Totally. So it's like we're getting this behind-the-scenes look at how decisions are made about using tech in government and how we make sure those systems are actually serving Canadians and not the other way around.
Exactly.
And just so everyone knows, we're using the official AIA tool webpage on Canada.ca for this deep dive. So
Yeah.
we're going right to the source here.
Absolutely the best source.
So let's get right into it. What exactly IS and AIA? If you had to explain it to a friend.
Okay, so think of it like a really detailed checklist.
Okay.
But instead of like packing for a trip or something, we're trying to figure out all the ways using an algorithm in government could impact things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a risk assessment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But specifically for AI or anything automated that could affect people.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But why should public servants, the folks listening to this right now, why should they really care? How does it connect to their everyday work?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is pretty simple. As public servants, your job is all about serving Canadians fairly and effectively right.
Right.
AI and automation can be really powerful tools to help us do that better,
Oh, for sure.
but only if they're used responsibly, and that's where the AIA comes in.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it helps make sure these systems are used ethically and transparently, which ultimately builds trust with the public.
Right, so it's about making sure the technology we use actually reflects the values that we as public servants try to uphold.
Exactly. And the great thing about the AIA is that it helps us spot potential problems early on. It forces us to ask tough questions about how using a system might impact people's lives, especially when it comes to making decisions that affect them.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the source material we're looking at today, it actually mentions specific risk areas
Yeah.
that the AIA looks at. Can you give us like a concrete example of what one of those looks like in action?
Absolutely. Let's say you're working on a project to streamline the process of getting permits using an algorithm, make it quicker and easier for people.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
One of the risk areas the AIA would flag is project authority. Basically, it asks, does this new system require us to create any new policies or regulations? Does it change who makes decisions or how those decisions are made in a way that we need to formally address?
So it's not just about building the tech itself, but also about making sure it fits within our existing rules and doesn't accidentally create a bunch of unintended consequences.
Exactly. And another risk area is impact assessment. So sticking with our permit example, the AIA would also ask you to think about any potential downsides for people who don't end up getting a permit.
Right.
Like, are there unintended consequences for them? How long could those last? Are we accidentally creating a system that puts certain groups at a disadvantage without even realizing it?
Okay, wow. This is starting to feel a lot more impactful than just like a technical checklist or something.
Right.
We're talking about real people's lives here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point. The AIA helps us consider those human impacts from the very beginning so we can build systems that are fair and equitable for everyone.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
This is where I think things can get kind of tricky for some people. The source material mentions like a scoring system and impact levels.
Right.
Can you maybe unpack that a bit, in a way that makes sense for public servants who might not be, data scientists or anything?
Yeah, totally. So remember all those risk areas we were just talking about? Well, the AIA actually gives each project a score, and that score is based on how you answer those questions about each risk area.
Okay.
And basically, a higher score means there's more potential risk with how the system might end up being used.
So kind of like a traffic light system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Red light, high risk, proceed with caution.
Exactly. And just like a traffic light, it's not about stopping everything altogether. It's about making sure you understand how much risk there is and then taking the right steps to manage that risk.
Okay, so let's say we do identify some risks through the AIA. What happens next? It's not like it just says, hey, this is risky, good luck, figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Huh. No, definitely not. The AIA also gives you guidance on how to actually mitigate those risks. It's not just about pointing out the problems, it's about helping you find solutions.
Okay, now we're talking, so it's like a roadmap rather than a roadblock.
Mm.
I like that. What kind of mitigation strategies are we talking about here?
So there's a few key categories. One is consultation with stakeholders, which
Hmm.
basically just means talking to the people who will actually be affected by the system before it's even launched.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about getting their input and making sure the system is really designed with their needs in mind from the get-go.
Right. You can't build something like this in a vacuum. You have to really understand the impact it's going to have in the real world.
Exactly. And then there's data quality assurance. So this is all about making sure the data that's used to train the algorithm is accurate and representative, free from any biases. We don't want to build a system that just ends up perpetuating inequalities that already exist.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. And we also need to think about procedural fairness. So this means having really clear rules about how the AI actually makes its decisions, and then also giving people a way to appeal those decisions if they think they've been treated unfairly.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also the processes and the rules around it, right? Like, how do we make sure there's accountability and transparency in how these systems are being used?
Exactly. You got it. And of course, there's privacy as well. We have to
Mhm.
make sure any personal information that the system uses is protected and that it's only being used for its intended purpose.
Okay. All this is making sense, but I'm kind of curious. How does the AIA decide how much mitigation is actually needed for a given project? It seems like some systems must just inherently be riskier than others, right?
Yeah, that's where those impact levels come in. So the AIA actually categorizes systems into 4 different levels based on how much they could potentially impact people's lives.
Okay.
Level 1 is the lowest risk, and level 4 is the highest.
So like a level 4 system with this really high potential impact would need way more scrutiny and mitigation than a level 1 system.
Oh, exactly. It's all about proportionality. The higher the potential impact, the more robust those mitigation strategies have to be. And it's important to remember that this isn't just a one-time check. We have to revisit the AIA and update it throughout the entire life of a system, especially as technology changes and we learn more about how it can impact people.
So it's like a living document. It's constantly evolving to keep pace with technology in the world around us.
Exactly. And something else that's super important about the AIA is that the results are actually public. Anyone can go online and see how different government projects have been assessed.
Oh, wow. Transparency is king, right?
Yeah.
Why is that public access so crucial, especially for public servants?
It all comes back to accountability. By being open about how we're using AI and automation, we build trust with the public. We're basically saying, hey, we're using this technology, and here's how we're making sure we're using it responsibly and ethically.
Yeah, it demystifies the whole thing
Yeah.
and helps people understand how these decisions are being made.
Exactly. And when people feel like they're part of the process, they're much more likely to trust the outcome.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the risks and the mitigation strategies and why transparency is so important. But who's actually in charge of all this? Like, who uses the AIA? Is it just the tech people, or is it more of a collaborative effort?
That's a great question, and this is where it gets really interesting. The AIA process is actually designed to be super collaborative
Okay.
because to do AI governance, well, you need input from a whole bunch of different people.
So it's not just coders and algorithms.
Nope, it's about bringing together people with all different kinds of expertise to make sure these systems are serving the public good.
I like that a lot. So who are we talking about here? Like, who are the key players?
Well, you've got your ATIP folks who are there to make sure we're protecting people's privacy.
Right.
Then you have legal services to give advice on, all the legal stuff. And of course, you need gender-based analysis plus
Yeah.
experts to consider how the system could impact different groups in our society.
Wait, hold on. Can you explain gender-based analysis plus for a sec?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm not sure everyone listening is familiar with that term.
So it's basically a way of looking at policies and programs and making sure they don't unintentionally create or worsen inequalities between different groups of people, especially based on gender.
Okay, so in the context of AI, it's about making sure the system doesn't accidentally disadvantage certain groups.
Exactly. Like if you're using an algorithm to help make hiring decisions, you want to make sure it's not biased against women or other underrepresented groups.
Right.
Gender-based analysis plus helps us identify and address those potential problems before they even happen.
That's super important. We want to make sure technology is being used to create a more equal and just society, not make existing inequalities even worse.
100%. And of course, the TBS OCIO plays a big role too. They kind of oversee the whole AIA process and make sure different departments are actually using it the way it's supposed to be used.
So it's a real team effort, bringing all these different people together to make sure these systems are actually being used responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. It shows that we get it. AI governance isn't just about technology, it's about people and values and making sure we're using these powerful tools to build a better future for everyone.
This has been so interesting, like getting this look behind the scenes at how the government is working to make AI and automation, actually work for everyone.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really encouraging to see how much thought and effort is going into making sure we develop AI responsibly.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, avoiding the bad stuff. It's about using these tools to actually make people's lives better.
Exactly. So let's bring it back to our listeners,
Yeah.
the awesome public servants who are tuning into this. What's the one thing you really want them to take away from all of this? How can they actually use this in their work, to make a real difference for Canadians?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the AIA isn't there to stop us from innovating. It's actually a framework to help us do it better, more responsibly.
Yeah, I like that.
It's all about making sure the technology we use aligns with our values as public servants and that it truly serves the people we're here to help.
So it's about putting people first.
Exactly. And the AIA gives us the tools to actually do that. It helps us ask the right questions, think about the potential impact on different groups of people, and actually build safeguards into the systems we're creating.
So it's about using technology to build a more just and equitable and inclusive society.
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just the job of, a few tech experts in a room somewhere. This is something that every single public servant can and should be thinking about.
That's a great point. So if you're working on a project that uses any kind of automated decision-making, even if it seems small,
Yeah.
take some time to think about the impact it could have on the people who will be affected by it.
Yeah, ask yourself, how can I use the AIA to make sure this is fair and transparent and accountable? How can I make sure it's empowering people and not, limiting their opportunities?
Wow, those are some powerful questions. I really hope our deep dive today has, inspired everyone listening to think critically about the role of technology in their work and to use the AIA to, really make a positive impact.
Me too. It's been great chatting with you about this.
Likewise, thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep making a difference.